Soros caught funding dirty dossier to oust Trump, Feinstein's busted too. What does George Soros and Senator Dianne Feinstein have in common? Well, they both are involved in the funding of Fusion GPS, the opposition research company that hired Christopher Steele to conjure up the dirty dossier against President Donald Trump. Feinstein thought she was shielded from detection. Well, explosive information was just found proving just how deep this web of corruption goes to oust Trump. Don't miss this. As we learn more and more about the illicit scheme to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president, we now find out that George Soros was the money source. George Soros has indirectly funded Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm behind the infamous Steele dossier, a spokesman for the billionaire financier has acknowledged, reported the Daily Caller. Michael Vachin, the Soros aide, told Washington Post columnist David Ignatius that Soros provided a grant to a non-profit group called the Democracy Integrity Project. That organization, which was formed in 2017 by Daniel Jones, a former Senate Intelligence Committee staffer for Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, paid Fusion GPS as a contractor to continue an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, added the Daily Caller. So was it any wonder Feinstein went rogue and released the entire transcript of Fusion GPS CEO Glenn Simpson's testimony last year? Simpson's testimony was riddled with inconsistencies and now has been proven highly suspicious. Feinstein probably released it to skew the truth. And both Feinstein and Virginia Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Panel, have more explaining to do. You see, Feinstein's former staffer Dan Jones approached a Washington, D.C. lawyer named Adam Waldman in March 2017. Who's Waldman? Waldman was an attorney for Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska. He also worked in some capacity for Christopher Steele, according to text messages he exchanged with Virginia Senator Mark Warner, the Daily Caller reported. Dan Jones here from the Democracy Integrity Project. Chris wanted us to connect, he wrote, seemingly referring to Steele. At a meeting 2 days later, Waldman said that Jones told him that he was working with Steele and Fusion GPS and that their project was being funded by Soros and a group of Silicon Valley billionaires. This entire conspiracy was to thwart conservative sources who backed up President Trump. Jones also sent Waldman a link to a March 20, 2017 article at McClatchy, which reported that federal investigators were looking into whether right-wing news sites like Breitbart and InfoWars played a part in Russia's election-oriented cyber operations. We now know that this so-called Russian interference was so minimal that it was clearly a cover story by these snakes to smear conservative media, and it worked. Facebook used these reports to launch algorithms which targeted conservative sites, cutting their reach 60 to 80%. The Soros funding was confirmed by the New York Times in a report on October 31. A spokesman for the billionaire told the newspaper that he had given $1 million to Jones Group and was considering donating more. What a tangled web of corruption going straight back to the Democratic Party via Senators Dianne Feinstein and Mark Warner. Yet, the mainstream media turn away from these bombshell reports and focus on fake news regarding President Trump. Hard-hitting CNN's new headline is "How can Rudy Giuliani possibly still be Donald Trump's lawyer?" Then, they rehash some old story about Trump Tower. It's pathetic. We have a real conspiracy here on our hands to oust the duly elected President of the United States, along with denying Americans freedom of speech by falsely smearing conservative sources loyal to Trump. But we should ponder why Giuliani is Trump's lawyer? We potentially have treasonous offenses on our hands, and it's all covered up by those who are supposed to be reporting the news. God help us. The only thing we can do is